Welcome back to another beginner deck tech. This is a series where I make budget commander decks for brand new players. Magic, and especially Commander, is a very complex game and it can be very daunting for new players. So I designed these decks as the perfect way to start. The decks have simple strategies, extremely limited text, and limited keywords to remember. And although they're not built for pure power, they can absolutely still win games and they're a lot of fun to play. Today's deck is Yargle and Multani. He costs 3 black, green for a total of 6 mana, and he's an 18/6. So that's right, 18 power. That's actually more power than any other commander in the game. And that's it, he's got no other text. He's what we call a vanilla creature. Because he doesn't have any rules text, the main strategy of this deck is trying to get Yargle and Multani to deal combat damage to an opponent, so we've got lots of stuff that allow us to attack without being blocked. We've got a couple ways for this deck to win. The first is getting our opponent's life total to 0, of course. That's the normal way that decks win, but we can also win with commander damage. Commander damage is a rule that says a player that's been dealt 21 or more combat damage by the same commander over the course of the game loses the game, so it doesn't matter what their life total is. If Yargle has dealt 21 or more combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. This is the main way that we're going to try to win games. In addition, this deck has 2 cards with the text "that player loses the game" in it, but we'll get to those cards later on in the video. First, we're going to go through the cards that are going to help us push Yargle and Multani damage through to a player, because a lot of times they'll have a creature on their side and they can just block him. We've got a couple cards that can give him flying. A creature with flying can only be blocked by other creatures with flying or reach. These cards are equipment. It's a type of artifact that gives the equipped creature added power or toughness or abilities, but it doesn't really do anything until after you pay the equip cost to equip it to a creature you control. You can only do this anytime you could cast a sorcery. If the equipped creature dies at some point, the equipment falls off and you can re-equip it to something else later. Hot Soup and Prowler's Hem both make it so equipped creature can't be blocked, and Loxodon Warhammer gives equipped creature +3 attack and has Trample and Lifelink. Trample means that excess combat damage is dealt to the defending player, so let's say Yargle and Multani has Loxodon Warhammer equipped to it and it attacks and is blocked by an opponent's 5/5. 5 damage is enough to kill the 5/5, so the remaining 16 damage is dealt to the defending player that Yargle and Multani is attacking. And lifelink means that when the creature deals damage, you also gain that much life. So in this case, you're gaining 21 life. We also have a couple creatures and 1 land that can help us get through combat damage. To go along with this strategy, we have a lot of creatures in the deck that have an effect when they deal combat damage to a player. Spawn Writhe makes a token copy of itself when it deals combat damage to a player. Storev, Devkaran Lich, returns target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand, as long as it wasn't put into your graveyard this turn. Garruk's Harbinger has protection from black, which means this creature can't be the target of black spells or abilities your opponents control. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may reveal a creature card or Garruk planeswalker card from among them and put them into your hand. Note that we don't have any planeswalkers, we're looking for a creature here. Geode Golem allows you to cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost when it deals damage to a player. And that's especially nice if Yargle and Multani has died once or twice, and now it's prohibitively expensive to cast. When Hydra Omnivore deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. Raving Dead says when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life, rounded up, which is the same effect as Virtus the Veiled. Virtus the Veiled also has Partner with Gorm the Great. That means when this creature enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named Gorm the Great and put it into your hand. Now for the cards I mentioned earlier, that player loses the game cards. Phage the Untouchable says when it enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. When Phage deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. It can't be regenerated. Whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. And Vorpal Sword can give equipped creature that same last ability if you have 8 mana to pay into it. Now let's talk defense, because we've got an attack-focused deck because a lot of our creatures are going to be trying to get in combat damage that could leave us open for our opponents to attack us. That's why we have a whole bunch of deathtouch creatures. Deathtouch means that any amount of damage it deals to another creature will be enough to destroy it. For example, if they're attacking you with a 5/5 and you block with this 1/1 Death Toucher, normally without Death Touch, your creature would die and not theirs, but with Death Touch, both creatures die. A couple creatures in the deck have Death Touch and Reach. Reach means it can block creatures with flying. An incredible 17 creatures in the deck have Death Touch. Next, let's talk about removal, and Death Touch plays a key role in our removal spells. 3 of our removal spells say target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. This works really well with Yargle and Multani with his 18 power, but it also works well with Death Touch. When a creature with Death Touch is targeted with a card like Hard-Hitting Question, it can kill pretty much anything. We also have a couple of other regular kill spells. Next up are the board wipes. A board wipe is something that takes out multiple targets, a whole bunch of targets or everything. And there's definitely going to be times when you don't want to cast the board wipe. You save these for when you need them. Languish, for example, gives all creatures -4/-4 till end of turn. That's going to take out most of the cards in your deck, but not Yargle and Multani. Same with Mandate of Abaddon. Choose target creature you control. Destroy all creatures with power less than that creature's power. And Hex destroys 6 target creatures. Note that with this one, you do need 6 targets. If there's only 5 creatures on the battlefield, you can't cast this. Here's a quick look at the ramp in the deck. The purpose of ramp is to get you ahead on mana so you can cast big stuff sooner. And the sooner we can get Yargle and Multani out, the better. Then we've got a bunch of card draw spells, very important in this format to keep our hand full. Oftentimes new players want to skimp out on card draw and ramp, but these really are the backbone of the deck. My favorite 2 ramp cards in the deck are Soul's Majesty, draw cards equal to the power of target creature you control, and Return of the Wild Speaker, which lets you draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Or, non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 till end of turn. So this is card draw, but it can also be a finisher. And it's an instant too, so you can spring this on them after you've already attacked with all your creatures and after they've blocked. But even better as a finisher is Overwhelming Stampede. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. If you've got Yargle and Multani out, all your creatures are getting +18/+18. And that includes Yargle himself, so he'll be a 36/36 trampler. Gonna be hard not to win with that. And even if you don't have Yargle and Multani out, if you can give your creatures, let's say, +4/+4 in trample, that's still pretty good. That could still close out the game. If you'd like to see the full deck list, including a few cards that I didn't go over, you can check out the link in the description to Moxfield. Moxfield even allows you to playtest the deck by yourself to see if it's the kind of deck you like, and it gives you easy options to buy if you want to buy it. If this deck doesn't seem quite what you're looking for, you can check out one of my other videos. I've got several of these now. I'll leave a link to the playlist in the comments, and you can check them out if you want. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.